kuhakikisha watu walio na baba wazi ndio nataka na shida kufanya na ndio ndio alikuwa alisema kitu kama hicho. It's become a nuisance. Yes. Lakini naenda kumpampa. Yes. Alimite baba tutamkanyanga hiyo jamii. Yes. Then anaonganga vitu. Akina baraka ndio ndio. Yes. Kwa nini wanajenga stadium? Yes. Hapo hivyo. Jana tuliwakalia. Tuwaogopi tena. Unajua mimi nipigana sana na Gojiri. So me I don't care anymore. Yes. Sasa nikiongea kitu wewe ameleta Gojiri. Sasa alikuwa ameleta Gojiri akuje ongea hapo. Nikamwambia Gojiri akiongea hapo tutapiga tu, watu watapiga tu. Yes. Wakamzuia. Tumesema hakuna maswali. Hakuna maswali. Yeah.
Honorable Soipan.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Welcome to the Sanhedrin. Yes. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
You're having the privilege of being vetted twice within 2 years. This is a committee of parliament that is going to assess your suitability for your reappointment to the docket of defense after dismissal. And the committee is chaired by yours truly, the Speaker. On my right is the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Gladys Boss. My left is Sarah Kyoko, our Deputy Clerk. I will invite the members who are your former colleagues to introduce themselves for the record, starting with Naisula.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Kimani Shongo.
Junet Mohammed, Suna East.
Nelson Rapkoech, Belgut.
Security Kosing, David.
David Gikaria, Nakuru Town East.
Mary.
Emase Mary, Teso South.
Abdul Rahim Daud, North Meru County.
Ferdinand Kevin Wanyonyi, Kwanza, Trans Nzoia County.
George Gitonga Murugara, Tharaka Nithi.
Owen Baya, Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui Kadhiani.
Didoraso Saku.
Abdi Shurie Balambala.
Mishimboko Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, County MP Nyeri.
Caleb Amisi Saboti. Stephen Mule Matungulu.
Honorable members, we will now proceed. I should disclose that the nominee was my pupil in her early years in my law firm. I should have done so with Kindiki as well. But, pardon? Yes, I have bragging rights. We will administer an oath before we proceed. You may select to take the Bible or the Quran or affirm. Which one do you take? Bible. Hold it in your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Rosalinda Soipan Tuya, do hereby swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. To introduce yourself, name, your education background, your work experience, and your key competencies that
An otherwise 5-year term, which is what I perceived to be, but even more privileged that I come in another capacity as the nominee for the Ministry of Defense. For purposes of introduction, I am Rosalinda Soipan Tuya, former member of Parliament. I pride myself to have served for 3 terms, 2 terms as at the National Assembly, and a very short 3rd term as a member of the Senate. In terms of education background, I'm a lawyer by training, having done my Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Nairobi. I have also acquired a diploma in law through the Advocates Training Program at the Kenya School of Law. And I have a Master of Laws in Sustainable International Development from the University of Washington in Seattle. I have had occasion to serve in various capacities at the private sector through development work. I have worked with the USAID. I have worked with the Kituo cha Sheria in advancing public interest litigation. I have also had occasion to serve as a member of the executive in the capacity of Cabinet Secretary in charge of environment, climate change, and forestry. Mr. Speaker, in terms of suitability for the position that I have been nominated to, the array of service that I have had occasion to be in, both in the public sector, the private sector, and in the civil service as a Cabinet Secretary, really posture me for this position as Cabinet nominee for Defense. Mr. Speaker, and my legal background and training, from my conception of the role ahead of me, it's largely a policy role in terms of analysis of policy, design of policy, and oversight of implementation of policy. And I believe that my role and experience in the three fields posture me well for the assignment ahead. The assignment ahead, should I be confirmed by this committee, again is largely a heavily constitutional office. You will find that the defense sector or the defense space and indeed national security really has the Constitution and Parliament as the bedrock of operations of the role ahead of me. So in appreciating and thanking His Excellency the President, William Ruto, for nominating me for this position, I believe that I have the requisite experience and training for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask the Deputy Speaker to have the first shot at questioning you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I can also make a confession that the nominee was my student at University of Nairobi. But that in no way will affect my judgment. Honorable Soipan, like you said, that the defense docket is highly regulated by law and rules and standing orders and military procedures. We have the Constitution and the Kenya Defence Forces Act, which establishes the position of Cabinet Secretary for Defence, who is then the principal advisor of the President on defence policy, while we have the Chief of Defence Forces, who advises the military on operational and administrative matters. So, despite these two distinct roles, there's a potential that there can be an overlap. How do you intend to manage that relationship? Because that is probably the most difficult thing in the position. Thank you.
Soipan, and we expect concise and precise answers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In terms of my role as CS for Defense, upon confirmation by this committee, I understand my role as being that of principal advisor to the President on matters of policy, also a heavy advisory role to Parliament on matters policy formulation, assessment of the capabilities of the Kenya Defence Forces, and any attendant action to ensure maximization of our capability. Mr. Speaker, I am aware of the distinction between I have no military background, and the Ministry of Defence has both a uniformed unit and a civilian unit. My role upon confirmation again will be chair of the Defence Council, the composition of which is consists of the Chief of the Defence Forces, the CDF, and the service commanders. And I am a team player by design and by practice. I am also very consultative in my leadership philosophy, and this is a skill set that I will have to employ heavily in terms of the need to understand the operational and administrative role of the uniformed side of the ministry for complementarity, but also to give me a competitive edge in terms of bringing my expertise from the civilian aspect, borrowing and learning from the uniformed aspect, so that my advisory role on policy is going to be rich and sufficient to advise the Commander-in-Chief as well as my interaction with Parliament. So I am confident that I will bring a team spirit to the ministry, and particularly at the level of the Defence Council, which is where I will be interacting with the service commanders. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, being one among the lucky 10 or so who were reappointed after the dismissal, what would you tell us would be at least one of your key achievements as Minister for Environment and Climate Change before the dismissal? And also Kenya having hosted the African Climate Change Summit last year and being one of the principal proponents of carbon markets trading. And that responsibility was in your office as Cabinet Secretary to enter into either multilateral or bilateral trading agreements for carbon credits. What would you say were your major achievements in that space in terms of trading carbon credits to be able to generate resources for our country?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My role as Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry was one of them, beside being the overall leadership on policy matters in the ministry. The environment and climate change sector is one that is cross-cutting across many sectors, but also at the various two levels of government, both national and county governments. I pride myself in successfully coordinating the various players in the environment and climate change sector, to the extent that Honourable Majority Leader, the success of the Africa Climate Summit, for example, was really a global event that brought the world to Nairobi and required a lot of heavy coordination. My other key priority as a CS Ministry of Environment was our ecosystem restoration program, the 15 billion tree growing program, which again, I believe I attained a significant amount of success in rallying the country to appreciate, right from individual Kenyan levels to ministries, departments and agencies and the various levels of players to come together and rally around ecosystem restoration as a critical component of our climate action. The Africa Climate Summit was a success by all design, in that Kenya did a heavy lifting of a job in spotlighting the potential for Africa to become a very critical solution provider for the climate action, the globe over, and dispelling the prevailing portraying of Africa as a victim, as the underdog in terms of the area of climate action, and posturing Africa, Kenya, as part of a critical solution provider. In the issue of carbon markets, Honourable Speaker, again, it's a mark of success for me. Kenya is touted as the top leader in carbon trading in the region of Africa. But in terms of the transparency of it, how much it impacts the lives of everyday Kenyans, and how much of that profiling of Kenya as top in the carbon markets contributes to the GDP of the country was really not there. And what I did immediately I came into the ministry was focus on formulating a legal framework through amendment of the Climate Change Act to bring transparency, accountability, and bring out the issue of benefit sharing for communities around the carbon markets. And it is instructive to note that carbon trading is a very nascent space over the globe now as a form of innovative climate financing. And just immediately before I left the ministry, we had already set up structures ready for full implementation of the new legal framework around carbon trading, and I believe it's going to be of benefit to Kenyans. It's going to be of benefit to investors in the form of project proponents, and most importantly to communities. Thank you.
Minority Leader, you skip? Yes, Nelson.
As the chairman of Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations, I'll be directly oversighting you, Madam Soipan. In my two-term stint,
if confirmed,
I was going there. You guys are interrupting my apologies. If confirmed, my two stints in Parliament has allowed me to see 4 generals, both as just a member of Defense Committee and now as a chairman, and 3 cabinet secretaries. And the biggest issue, Madam Soipan, Honorable Soipan, has been the lack of appreciation from the civilian side of the military units and formation. They feel that the civilian side is overreaching and sometimes overbearing. They want to, by the time someone becomes a general, it takes about 35 years of hard work and merit. Every step in the military is merited. And sometimes because of our, short stints in the portfolios that we get, they have a feeling that sometimes the cabinet secretaries or the civilian side are overreaching. What do you think you will do differently, Honorable Soipan?
Hold will take Naisula.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Soipan, in your previous docket at the Ministry of Environment, you are at the forefront and very instrumental in the national tree growing campaigns. Kenyans and many of us were concerned about the amount invested in the various government officials, such as cabinet secretaries who traversed the country in choppers to participate in tree planting drive. While these exercises could have been conducted by the governors and the counties and our members of parliament and the people at the community level. Now that Kenyans are very keen on austerity measures, what will you do? And you first tell us what was the justification, or what did you have in mind as a cabinet secretary to see all those resources spent on choppers to go and plant trees? The second question is the issue of deployment of KDF in our homeland. We saw recently how KDF was deployed in inland or homeland without it being passed in Parliament. And we did it the next day hurriedly, even without members of Parliament deliberating on that matter. I would like to get your view on this. And also deployment of KDF in parts of North Rift, parts of our country. And the true feeling on the ground is that they do not respond fast when they are needed. They say they have to wait for orders. And the questions the civilians and the communities are asking, then why are you there in the first place if you cannot be the first respondents when something happens, when the bandits attack, and you have to wait for orders from somewhere else? And Chairman, the last question is that there are projects which were done by KDF in the last administration. Some are complete, but payment has not been done. Will the payment, do you think there should be continuity in government projects, while others are incomplete, but 2 years down the line, they have not been embarked on? Do you think continuity should be there? Because there should be value for money.
You can respond to those two.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The question by the Honourable Nelson Koech on the probability of my overreaching my mandate from the civilian side and infringing on the uniformed side of the ministry, I can give assurance to all the players in the Ministry of Defence that upon my confirmation as CS Defence, that as I had said earlier, I'm very heavy on team playing. I'm also a fast learner, Honourable Koech, and I'll have a lot of learning to do in terms of the military operations, the administration. And in order for me to effectively exercise my overall oversight, the overall policy direction and advisory, I will need to critically understand those operations without infringing or interfering with those very distinct roles of the uniformed units of the ministry. That I can give assurance. I'm also very, very consultative in my leadership style. Honorable Naisola, the issue of tree growing in choppers by cabinet secretaries. My main role as CS for environment in the tree growing activity was really coordinatory. And you will appreciate, Honorable Naisola, that the nature of the ecosystem restoration program is that it has to have everybody on board, from individual Kenyans, private sector, and all government agencies. So it cannot be the preserve of even the Ministry of Environment, and that is why we were very heavy on the whole of government and whole of society approach to the tree growing program. In the coordinatory role of when I was CS Environment, we did not make any provision for transport or logistics arrangements for cabinet secretaries when they were exercising their, when they were doing their ministerial activities around tree growing. So any cabinet secretary who traveled by chopper, by road, really it was outside of my mandate and scope, and therefore I cannot speak to that. The only thing I can say is that during the second national tree growing program, and having noted a number of concerns raised by Kenyans around the heavy presence of helicopters and heavy spending around tree growing, again we addressed that at cabinet level, and making sure that the exercise was again very grassroots centered. The coordination by the Kenya Forest Service and other entities at the community or the grassroots level, or at the forestation levels. And therefore, in terms of resources, I had no mandate to resource anybody to go out and plant trees. Actually, my role was only coordinatory. In terms of the second question, Honorable Lesuda, on deployment of KDF, Mr. Speaker, it is very important for Kenyans to understand the core mandate of the KDF, and one of which is the defense and protection of the territorial integrity of the country, as well as the country's sovereignty. The other two key functions of KDF revolve around internal deployment, and it comes in two forms. And this is a constitutional mandate of KDF. On one facet, and this is should be Article 241(3)(b) of the Constitution, where KDF can come in to assist and cooperate with other agencies in instances of emergency and disaster. An example of which is the deployment of KDF to assist during the flooding situation, where we lost a lot of lives in Mai Mahiu. In that instance, deployment happens, and then a report is made to Parliament. And it is also important to note that under that particular deployment of assisting and cooperating with other agencies, the KDF is not the front line. The front line is these other agencies, and it is the case with the northern Kenya deployment. So these other agencies are the front line, and KDF comes in to assist and cooperate. The other very important facet of deployment is Article 241(3)(c). And Mr. Speaker, this is the aspect of deployment which cannot happen without the authority of Parliament. And this is the deployment of the KDF forces to keep peace in instances of instability in the country. And that cannot happen without the express approval of Parliament. And in that instance, the KDF take the front line in terms of operations. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to speak to the deployment that happened during the recent unrest. The deployment happened around the assistance and cooperation with other agencies. So it is not the 241-3C where KDF takes the front line. And what happened is that the CS then did the deployment via gazette notice for KDF to assist the National Police Service. And the following day came before Parliament to seek authority for 241-3C. But the 241-3C was never effected. The only effect was done on 241-3B on assistance. And the reason why, in my thinking, that the deployment under 241-3C never happened is because upon the court case, which I believe is still live, and I will not speak to the merits or demerits of the case, is that the court then mandated the government to expand on the scope, the nature, and the duration of the deployment, and that was done through a subsequent gazette notice, which then gave a broader definition of the deployment across the country, and until the unrest situation is addressed. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, there's one more question, but allow me also to say that all the operations of KDF, and indeed under the principles of national security is subject to the Constitution. National security is subject to the authority of Parliament. And I will, upon confirmation, be very keen to focus on the need to strictly adhere to the constitutional provisions with regard to deployment. And Honorable Lesuda, with regard to the slow nature of movement by KDF, of course, I have not had occasion to listen and hear out that part of the complaint, but I would imagine it is because they are not the front line. The front line is the National Police Service. In terms of projects by KDF that are incomplete, the value for money issue, I can only say that I will defer, a comprehensive response to this question. And also, given that one of my mandates as CS upon confirmation is to assess and oversee the implementation of projects to ensure efficiency and proper utilization of funds, and with a close working relationship with the line committee of Parliament, these are issues that I should be able to address upon confirmation. Thank you.
Posing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. To begin with, Honorable Speaker, and to the nominee, is an information that if you are confirmed, Honorable Soipan, if the committee sees it fit and Parliament.
Posing, hold on. Soipan, the clerk wants your documents so that they can be able to check against what you send to us as we go on with the questions. If you can provide that, thank you. Go on, Posing.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the nominee, Honorable Soipan, I was saying, one is this North Rift conflict, which of course KDF were brought in accordance with the law. And of course you might remember, or in the discussion, West Pokot was the epicenter of all these issues for completely wrong reason. However, I wanted to remind you, if you are confirmed, that there are some few things which are going on. And I hope when you come in that you don't forget, so I want to give it for your list. There are projects which were to be done. And absence of war, Honorable Soipan, through Honorable Speaker, is not necessarily peace. So maybe people in North Rift are waiting for those government interventions, right? And if they don't, I don't know what they're going to say. So there are two places which the government had not or have not completed deploying KDF. One is a place called Sokoto, and another one is called Kamele. This is epicenter of conflict in North Rift. I want you to note. 3 is opening of schools in all those areas. Can you imagine, as I talk to you, Honorable Speaker, that there is a division called Jesecon Division in North Rift, which has more than 6 schools where students don't go. You know, because nobody can go there because of insecurity. One of our agreement with the leadership at that particular time that those schools were open and be done by KDF. That spans all the way from Tiati, West Pokot, and something like that. So, Honorable Speaker, through you, I want Honorable Nominee to know that should she be approved by Parliament to take over. The question there, therefore, is, Honorable Soipan, this recruitment of KDF has been bringing a lot of problems in the public at that local level in terms of corruption. And it's almost becoming an official thing where a parent with a child going for recruitment comes to some of us as leaders and asks for money. Can you imagine? Money to be used to pay people in KDF. And it averages between 600 and 1 million. Imagine. You know, it's terrible. It's terrible. And you know, locally, and particularly for us pastoralists, being employed in army is almost like going to heaven. You know, it is the best job, actually, from where I come from. It's actually the best job. So people spend a lot of money. So what will you do now? That's the question. You don't need to respond to the earlier one. The question will be, what will you do in this department that is said people buying jobs, people selling? And it is true, Honorable Soipan, people sell land to pay 600,000 to 1 million. What will you do, Madam Soipan, that there is nobody to pay to be recruited as a KDF? Thank you, Speaker.
Gikaria, you'll pass. Emase, you'll pass.
Chairman, I just want to add on to what Honorable Kosing has said. And besides parting with money, even those recruits who are successful on reporting to training camps, a number of them are dismissed on flimsy reasons. It happened last year, and our constituents came to us. Our efforts to reach the CS were in vain. So we really want to know, because Kenyans are suffering. Again, I want to reiterate that recruitment into KDF has become a preserve of the rich people. The poor people will never get their children working in KDF. So if we approve you, are you going to make a difference? What is it you're going to do differently? So that opportunities are open and available to all Kenyans, irrespective of who you are and where you come from, on whether you have land to sell or not. That is a very serious issue. Honorable Nominee, we need your response to that.
Daud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Soipan, you did a wonderful job while you were in environment, and I believe if we approve you, you will do better in defense. I just want to touch on 2-3 things which the defense forces were handling: Nairobi Metropolitan, the KMC, Kenya Meat Commission, and others, and they've got a very good engineering department. Would you probably think, if you are appointed, to have the Kenya Defense Forces like a company where they would come and assist in making schools and making bridges and all that at a fraction of a cost what the government would be paying private contractors? Would you think that would work if you were appointed?
You can answer those, Soipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have noted the concerns raised by the Honorable Kosing on the epicenters of conflict in West Pokot County. And I promise Honorable Kosing, should I be successful in becoming the CS, I will focus on these concerns. because of the critical nature of opening up the northern region. I believe opening it up for development and all the infrastructure necessary for the livelihood support for the people of West Pokot will go a long way. On the issue of KDF recruitment, Mr. Speaker, from my reading of the core principles of national security, the drafters of our constitution found it fit that the issue of integrity around recruitment of Kenyans to the Kenya Defence Forces would be a very core component of the national principles of national security, because the Constitution actually demands of the national security organs to ensure, to reflect the diversity of the communities of Kenya and ensure diversity in equitable proportions in the recruitment of Kenyans to the defense forces and other security organs. Mr. Speaker, when you see the enthusiasm around young Kenyans coming to front themselves to participate in the recruitment into the forces, I think it is a process we have to guard very seriously in terms of the integrity. And I want to assure members of Parliament, I want to assure Kenyans that being that this is an issue that has been so incessant, I have been a member of this House before, Mr. Speaker, and this is an issue that has kept on recurring over and again. And being that the chairman of the line committee on defense and national and foreign relations is a member of this committee, I can commit, Honorable Speaker, that I will take time to evaluate the standard operating procedures of the KDF recruitment process, and with a view to identify the gaps to make sure that we adhere to the strict requirement of the Constitution in terms of the integrity around the recruitment process, Mr. Speaker. When Kenyans front themselves to be in the front line of the defense of our country, it's only fair that we afford that opportunity on an equitable measure. So, Honorable Emase and Honorable Kosing, I undertake to make sure that, again, we also need a lot of sensitization for Kenyans to know that you do not have to pay to be recruited into the KDF. I will look again at the SOPs around the recruitment, but it is also high time that we have a whistleblowing around these activities with a rapid response to issues of corruption and malpractices around the recruitment process. So, Mr. Speaker, it is my undertaking that it is an area of priority that I will look at. And should there be cases of malpractice from within, because it is from without the KDF, and in certain instances within the KDF, then appropriate action would be taken.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order.
Yes, Person.
Honorable Speaker, if Mwananchi knows that they are taking this at 600,000 to one KDF, where is NSIS? Where is defense force? They have intelligence. They call what? Military intelligence. I used to be in that committee in my first parliament. What is going on? I think Honorable Soipan crashed this thing. Let Kenyans be recruited in KDF without 1 shilling. Let them hear you today. Thank you, Speaker.
That's not a question, it's just a comment. Do you
Chairman,
everything?
Just on the same, so that she concludes. Chairman, Kenyans are being conned, and these matters are reported even to NSIS, and nothing seems to be done. Nothing is done. Our constituents report to us numerous cases, and there are also cartels that now have taken advantage. They will pretend to be KDF officers. I think this is a matter that should be taken seriously, not only by defense, but by all security organs, NIS included.
Yes, what's your point of order?
Just to say, we as a committee were seized of such matters. Most of the things that are said are actually not pointing to the military itself, but people out there who decide to con on and say they work on behalf of the military, yet indeed the military are not even aware. There's a procedure of how the military picks its recruits, and that procedure is very elaborate. It's even put in the newspaper. And where officers have been found culpable, they have been court-martialed.
Chairman.
Honorable Soipan, what you'll do is what we have told many of your colleagues, that none other than the President himself has lamented that one of the weak links in our government is communication. That the people assigned responsibility to assist the President don't communicate enough. So if you are confirmed, you should undertake to the country that before any recruitment, you'll carry out extensive information dissemination to Kenyans that this recruitment is on merit, it is free, and any con fellow who comes around asking for money in exchange for slots should be reported to the nearest agencies, be arrested, be prosecuted, and if convicted, sent to jail.
Chairman, please allow me to add something on that.
Yes.
I think, Chairman, the elephant in the house here is about the state letters. Why should some people be given letters and they go directly to the training, and others they go to the ground for recruitment? That is the biggest challenge we have, and that is the problem.
Mr. Speaker, before I respond to Honorable Dawood, allow me to say one more thing with regard to the recruitment menace and corruption. Mr. Speaker, should I be confirmed for this position, I will also be a member of the National Security Council, and as has been stated here, the issue of recruitment malpractices may not only be within the KDF, so this is an issue of grave national concern that I would endeavor within the operations of the National Security Council to raise it for proper redress. But, Honourable Speaker, the points raised by members are well noted, including the communication aspect. The Honourable Dawood, the issue of the participation of the Kenya Defence Forces in the development agenda of the country, I think that really is the scope of your question. And we have a defense industry or industrialization policy whose import is really to have the KDF be part of the national development agenda because of certain competencies that are found within the KDF. When you look at certain state corporations under the Ministry of Defense, one of which being the Kenya Ordnance Factories Corporation, which deals with the manufacture of ammunition and is slowly expanding its mandate to food production. It comes with a facet of the KDF, which, because of the competitive edge in terms of skills and expertise, it can then contribute to the national development agenda of job creation, food security, and the likes, and also in the construction industry. And that is the same scope of operation of KMC. You know, bringing KMC into the operations of KDF, again, is in the same spirit. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the issue of defense industry is very critical, and particularly for the sake of the self-sufficiency of the Kenya Defense Forces in the wake of a very shaky fiscal situation, not just in Kenya, but the globe over. I think because of the critical nature of the mandate of KDF, we should be expanding the scope of operations to make sure that we engage in industries that that will bring about self-sufficiency in terms of operations, food sufficiency, and indeed the issue of capacity building and equipment capabilities. So, Honorable Dawood, it is an area of critical concern for me that the very strategic state corporations under the ministry should be, facilitated through investment to make sure that we expand that scope of work of the KDF. Thank you.
Ferdinand.
I think we hope you're going to be made the CS for defense from what you're saying. However, Mr. Speaker, we've had a lot of widespread criticism and public uproar on the equipment, depleted equipment of the military equipment that, and we have seen this in several accidents that have been there involving the aircrafts, and of course the concern therefore is the safety of the country's defense force. Yeah, and when it comes to the funding, I think the defense force actually gets most of the funds, and so I just want to ask you a very simple question. What measures are you going to take to address the maintenance and modernization? You are up to that task. Modernization of the military equipment to ensure that there's safety and in the defense forces, and effectively utilize the allocated funds that you normally get, because we give them a lot of money when it comes to utilization of the funds. And also we have not been told about the modernizing the equipment. I think take that note and let us know what you want to do. What programs do you have on that?
Murugara, you'll pass. Owen, you'll pass.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I have one question to the nominee, Honorable Soipan Tuya. Article 153, subsection 3, requires CSs to appear before National Assembly or Senate committees when summoned, especially to answer to questions within their responsibility. However, many times the Ministry of Defense has invoked Section 49 of the Kenya Defense Forces Act, which basically limits access to information to protect national security, and therefore hindering Parliament's ability to oversight the ministry due to lack of information. You have been in Parliament, so I'm sure you understand this, and how much members would like to know and how much they can be told. So if you are approved, how do you plan to balance the need for national security with also the constitutional requirements for transparency and accountability to the people's representatives?
Let's take one more. Mule, you'll pass.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Nominee Honorable Soipan. I just want to declare my interest. She's a sister-in-law, and I want to find out from you, what is your vision of a better defense force in future in this country?
Thank you. Those are short ones. We can take a fourth one, a third one, actually. Russell?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Soipan, mine is just a quick and a simple question. If the House approves your nomination, you will be working with the Ministry of Defense, people who are moving fast, and they want to be at the cutting edge. But there's clamor for Kenyans wanting deployment in the North Rift, South Rift, in Isiolo, and all that. But defense is really about the country. How would you see balancing that to external aggression vis-a-vis internal deployment? Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Sharia will pass. Mishi?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, allow me to ask this question because so far I've buried so many young men in terms of what we call landmine. And I think, and I'm really pleading with my sister Soipan, if you're accepted in this docket, please coordinate or rather collaborate with the Minister for Road and Infrastructure so that at least we save the lives of these young people. And lastly, what measures are you going to put to ensure you achieve gender parity in terms of key military position? Because right now most of them are dominated by men. I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Soipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll start with a question by the Honorable Wanyonyi, Ferdinand Wanyonyi, on the safety of equipment and the issue of maintenance and modernization vis-a-vis the budgetary allocation for the Ministry of Defense. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of budget, the little bit of interaction with the budget of the ministry that I have had a chance to look at the moment, and maybe Honorable Koech would bear me witness, is that a big chunk of the budget that goes to the Ministry of Defense goes into recurrent expenditure. But that is an issue that I'm going to look into with the relevant ministry, committee, to make sure that I understand it well and posture myself for, ensuring value for money for any investment within the forces. With the issue of equipment, yes, it is a concern in the country, and it's not just the air, mostly the air assets, I believe, is what your question is focusing on. And again, as one of my mandates is to assess the maintenance and to ensure efficacy and efficiency of this equipment. And I'm going to be very keen on that, as guided Honorable Wanyonyi. Honorable Mbui, on the issue of Article 153 on appearance before the Committee of Parliament and the whole issue about access to information. Mr. Speaker, access to information, as members would know, has certain limitations under Article 24 of the Constitution. With regard, Article 24 read together with the sections of the Kenya Defence Forces Act with regard to classified information and information within the custody of the Kenya Defence Forces. And there is categorization of information that cannot be divulged because it amounts to jeopardizing the national security. But, Honorable Speaker, with regard to accountability and transparency, again, as CS, upon confirmation, I have the regulatory mandate to, regulate the issue around the operating procedures around what is classified and what it is that cannot be divulged out here. And it is also about the authority of who is requesting the information from the Kenya Defence Forces. But by all means, Honourable Speaker, the limitation cannot be used as a conduit to downplay the need for transparency and accountability. So through my chairmanship of the Defense Council, once approved, again is an issue that I will look into to ensure that there is a balance and that the ministry is not hiding under the limitation of the access to information constitutional provision. Honorable Mule, I think it's Honorable Mule, on the issue of what vision I would have for a very effective KDF. It is really about a well-equipped posturing of the various forces, both the air, the water, and the land in terms of the army. It is about mission preparedness, and readiness to respond to any external aggression in a proportionate measure. And really, again, to make sure in terms of training, equipping and capacity building, the issue of the welfare of our service members is also of great concern for me. To make sure that the men and women who are again taking the front line in defense of the country are comfortable and well prepared to be ready for mission. The Honorable Dido Raso, the balance between readiness to respond to external aggression or potential threats of external nature, and what I might be reading that you're talking about over-engagement of the KDF internally. It's a balance that we must strike. And again, being that the whole defense and protection mandate is really under this subject to the authority of the Constitution, I will make sure that the deployment of external and internal aspects of deployment of KDF are in balanced proportions, noting that the core mandate is really the territorial borders of the country and protection of the country from external aggression. The Honorable Mishi Mboko, I might have missed the question on how you would wish the KDF to respond to the issue of, is it the road carnage or landmines?
It is the landmine.
Yes.
You know, because if you tarmac the road, if you put cabro, then they cannot be able to plant those landmines. That is why I was saying that you need to collaborate with the CS for infrastructure and roads.
Agreed, Honorable Mishi, and the point is taken. On the issue of gender parity, Honorable Speaker, I think as a country we have come from very far, because, Honorable Speaker, it is interesting to note that the Women's Service Corps was only disbanded in 1999 in the country, very recent. And the existence of the Service Corps meant that women were not integrated in the defense forces, that women in the force were not allowed to, you know, their rights were really limited in terms of even marriage and childbearing and deployment, you know, in operations. And I think we have come quite far, Honorable Speaker, but I have started reviewing the gender policy of the Ministry of Defense, and with a view to make sure that that progress that we made in the disbursement of the Women Service Corps is one that we will maximize on to make sure that women find their space. For those that are intended on serving their country in the KDF are not limited in any manner, just the same way that we are saying for every other Kenyan, not just women. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mukami, you'll pass?
No, this time no.
Go on.
Thank you, Chair. As the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, you are the advisor to the President on defense policy, while the Chief of the Defense Forces advises on military, operational, and administrative matters. Despite this distinct role, there is a potential for overlap. What strategies will you implement to maintain clear boundaries between policy formulation and military operations? My sister, this is not an easy docket. He did. Okay. The other question, I happen to be in the motor industry, and I realized that Ministry of Defense, you normally...
Which industry, Mushmo?
Motor, yeah. And I know the Ministry of Defense, you normally lease vehicles. And the government is spending billions and billions of money. And I'm wondering, is it really making value for money instead of you buying vehicles for the defense? Thank you. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to address it?
Thank you, Speaker. Mine are just two quick ones. Honorable Nominee, recently Kenya was designated as a non-member allied to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Could you explain what that means to the nation? And then secondly, I just wish to know if the Gazette notice, the deployment of the military to the streets to calm the protesters, is it live? And how long was it supposed to take? Thank you.
Soipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With regards to the question raised by the Honourable Member for Nyeri County, Honourable Mukami, it is around the value for money in terms of the practice of leasing as opposed to purchase of vehicles for the military. I will not venture much into it. It is an issue that I will have a look at in terms of what the prevalent situation is. But by all means, the point you raise is valid, that we should be looking at very efficient ways of expending our monies within the KDF. Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Caleb Amesi, the recent designation of Kenya as a major non-NATO ally by the US is one that we really should be proud of as a country. It places Kenya at a competitive edge in terms of bilateral engagements with the United States, and it comes with a lot of advantage in terms of access to equipment, access to training opportunities, and the general advancement of the defense cooperation between Kenya and the United States. Really the whole space around enhanced capability of our forces through defense cooperation with the United States. Just to say on the same light, Mr. Speaker, is that multilateralism is very important, bilateralism is very important, because Kenya has to play its part as part of the part of a member of the larger community of states, again in the backdrop of a very dynamic geopolitical situation around security and defense matters. The question on the Gazette notice deploying the KDF, it is still live, and the time duration is until the normalcy is restored. I think it's an issue that upon confirmation is to go back and assess the situation with a view to know the utility of whether to keep on having the deployment subsisting or to bring it to a halt, given that a fair amount of normalcy actually has been restored with regard to the recent unrest in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Soipan. I'll ask you a few mundane questions that you can answer. In your last deployment before dismissal, have you been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report or investigations?
Not at all, Mr. Speaker.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party?
No.
What is your net worth?
Mr. Speaker, my net worth stands at 448 million Kenya shillings.
How much were you worth at the last?
It was 156 million Kenya shillings.
What has occasioned the growth?
Mr. Speaker, it's largely appreciation of assets, private business, and one asset acquired within Nairobi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We'll come to the end there. Your documents have been looked at, compared with what you sent to us, and they have been found to be in order. So your originals will be given back to you. Memoranda. We also are informed by the clerk that you adequately responded to the memoranda sent against you, and there were 44. Some were just saying well done, others were saying you are not suitable, and so on. Those that had any details, you have responded. So unless you are lawfully held, you are hereby discharged.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Remember to carry your original documents with you. Members can remain behind. Our good team from the Fourth Estate, well done. You have conducted yourselves very well. We encourage you to be here tomorrow morning. We'll start the proceedings at 8. Extreme, yes.